4, 5, 6, 7, and 10. Peace, everyone. Welcome to the Friday listening party. I'm Eric Lee 108, sociologist, philosopher, uh, rapper, and author, and blogger. Um, and I'm debuting my brand new track like I do every Friday. Actually, there is no track. I don't even know why I'm going live. This week's drop is not happening. Before we jump in, drop where you're watching from and let me know if you've read the blog post. Yeah. Um, I don't have the money to release once a week. Could have rushed it. I thought about releasing my book Dark Racism, and I will listen to some of it. I made the audiobook, the abridged audiobook, available on Lyceum Records YouTube, and we'll listen to some of it. But um, I've been busy all week updating blogs. Um, I have about 8 blogs that are about to be on Fiance.com. So, yeah, what are they called? This is what it looks like. Like this is one of them. It's called the Psychosocial Philosopher. If you go to psychosocialphilosopher.com, you'll find it. Let me see here. There's a bunch of them. So they're basically blogs about various topics. It's basically an extension of me. Um, Let me see. I'm trying to get to the about section. This doesn't let you do any of that. It doesn't say who it was written by. Anyways, there's a bunch of blogs I'm working on. I've been working on it all week, like all day, every day, all week. I started them back in like 2010, 2011, and then the psychosocial philosopher is actually hooked up to AdSense and has been making me some money. Um, but it's more like a vehicle for writing these blog posts, get people that find it on Google, and then I promote my books through it. It's mainly for my books, but let's see. I can get out of this. And anyways, it's a promotional vehicle, as well as the whole point of my music is to be about the message, and it further explains the message like I do in my books. And so I'll write like my books like I talk about in Farming Humans that America doesn't know what socialism is, so I would make a post about what socialism is on the Psychosocial Philosopher, and then I'd say if you want to understand more or the entire thing, read my book, Farming Humans, and then here's some other blogs. So these are the blogs. I have one at lyceumrecords.com, independenthiphop.com, psychosocialphilosopher.com, socioeconomicmarket.com, nouveaueconomics.com, wanaworld.com, sociologyoflove.com, cosmiclove.com, and I think that's it. I've gotten all of them done except for the Lyceum. I have them all where I want to. There's like an aesthetic I'm making for each one of them. They all look. Some of them have like the repeat like type of blog style, but like Sociology of Love has a mascot. So does Lyceum Records. So does Cosmic Love. Um, It's kind of like this visual appeal along with the information, and it's taken me a while to get it all where I want it to be. Um, I like doing content, but then again, I don't like doing content. I like telling stories or whatever, um, but I don't like that I have to keep up with it. Otherwise, I lose momentum. I can't keep it consistent. I always get too busy. Um, I have other things. That's why, like, the administrative side of doing the music and releasing every week, and then trying to release a book a month. Um, and I don't have the money for it, so I figured I'd take a step back and try a different approach with these blogs. So yeah, we have the Dark Racism book out. You can go to darkracism.com to find an offer for my books. Dark Racism and Who's the Goat. I'll probably promote Dark Racism again next month. It's nostalgia. I'm gonna have to like repeat some of the stuff. Maybe I'll have like a today and on this year I released whatever, something like that, where I go over old tracks. I have so much stuff to promote. Let's see. I'm on Bandcamp. I got my first two paid school members. I got on Bandcamp. I'm basically pushing, like, I'm going to be pushing Bandcamp and Even and not Spotify because I got to focus on making money. Um, and I'm going to use, like, Spotify as, like, a tool for bringing people into these other platforms. Um, because it's just not paying the bills. Like, I'm still struggling. Uh, so, yeah, hard work doesn't pay off in this country. That's what I've learned. Hard work definitely doesn't pay off. It's all about money and connections. The American dream is a lie. It doesn't matter how hard you work. If you don't have capital, you won't make it. And that's by design. So, let's see. Working on the blogs. I'll work on it again after we get done with this. The independent hip hop and Lyceum Records one. All the other ones are done. I'm going to put them all on Fiance.com. There's a new tab that I'll be making to promote the blogs. So let's see. Follow me on Bandcamp. I I'm waiting until I get 10 subscribers on Bandcamp and then I'll release another album. There's only one album up. And if you're like one of the OGs, it's like $1 for the album, and then you get like a certificate that says you're a day one supporter. Um, I really got to send out an email to my. I got another person on my email list. My email list is getting bigger and bigger. I should probably utilize that. I've been reaching out to people to see if they need help with their business. That's what I've been doing on school. Um, so join my school community. I created a blog. I published Dark Racism and Who's the Goat and got the offer done at darkracism.com. I got America 2 back, the album from Keanu, and I'm sending. I sent him the corrections. The latest release is M on the Brain. The release before that was For Good. The next release is Emma Watson. The Mr. Congeniality 2 is uploaded and comes out August 28th. Okay, let's listen to some of Dark Racism.
Dark racism, linguistic and economic. How America built inequality into law, wealth, and culture. Written and narrated by Eric Leo. Chapter 1. What was stolen? How we got.
I do not have a blog post for this yet. I'm not officially promoting it. I'll be promoting it again, but this is the audio.
Here.
And you can find this on my YouTube at Lyceum Records. If you just go to YouTube and put in Eric Leo 108, it'll come up with my channel, and then go to the videos, and it'll be one of them. I just released it like 30 minutes ago.
In the story we inherited. Before I say anything in my own voice, I want to start by giving you the better work. If you want to learn this subject for real, don't let this book be the only thing you read. Use it like a doorway, not a destination. Here are books that are smarter than me, more researched than me, and honestly, more essential than anything I'm about to say. If you want to understand institutional racism without shortcuts, start here. Books I recommend first. Read these before or alongside this book. The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. This is the backbone of modern discussions about mass incarceration. Alexander shows how the U.S. built a racist caste system after civil rights, not before. On paper, everyone has equal rights. In practice, policing, sentencing, and felony records create a permanent underclass disproportionately made up of Black Americans. This book directly supports my central claim. Racism didn't end, it adapted. If you understand this book, you understand why dark racism focuses on institutions, not individual bad actors. The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. Rothstein demolishes the myth that segregation just happened. Using court cases, zoning laws, housing policy, and federal programs, he proves segregation was created by government action at every level. This matters here because it destroys the idea that racial inequality is cultural or accidental. It shows that today's wealth gap, school inequality, and neighborhood poverty are the result of deliberate policy, not personal failure. A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. Zinn tells American history from the perspective of people who paid the price for progress. Enslaved people, indigenous communities, and the poor. This book teaches you to stop treating American history like a bedtime story told by winners. It reinforces one of the core ideas of dark racism. Power writes history, and racism is one of the tools power uses to justify itself. An Indigenous People's History of the United States by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. If you skip Native history, you miss one of the clearest templates for how America does progress. This book shows how genocide, land theft, and cultural erasure were not side effects, but foundational strategies. It matters because it reveals that racism isn't an exception in U.S. history, it's a method. Understanding this makes modern institutional racism easier to recognize. White Rage by Carol Anderson. This book explains backlash. Every time black Americans make progress, there is organized resistance designed to roll it back, quietly, legally, and strategically. It matters here because dark racism isn't about oppression, it's about how power reacts when challenged. Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo explains that oppression isn't just about laws, it's psychological. It shapes how people see themselves, their worth, and their possibilities. This book is crucial to dark racism because it explains why oppressed communities sometimes internalize narratives that harm them, and why blaming culture instead of systems is a trap. Ghost in the Schoolyard by Eve L. Ewing. Ewing examines school closures in Chicago and shows how education policy becomes one of the politest, quietest ways racism operates. Schools are shut down, communities are destabilized, and children pay the price, all while officials claim neutrality. This book connects directly to my argument that racism today hides behind bureaucracy. You'll never believe what happened to Lacey by Amber Ruffin and Lacey Lamar. This is what everything you're reading looks like in real life. Not theory, not abstraction. Everyday racism as it's lived, joked about, survived, and remembered. The stories are funny, absurd, infuriating, and devastating, often all at once. Think of this as the applied version of dark racism. It shows how small moments pile up into a system you can't ignore. Books I talk about in this book, you should read these too. These works are referenced directly in the arguments and examples throughout the book. Critical Race Theory, The Key Writings That Form the Movement by Kim Crenshaw. This collection shows what CRT actually is, a legal framework developed to explain why inequality persists after civil rights laws pass. It's about systems, not personal guilt. This book matters because CRT is constantly misinterpreted and dark racism builds on many of the same structural insights. A Collar in My Pocket by Jane Elliott. Elliott documents the blue eyes, brown eyes experiment, showing how quickly ordinary people can be trained to discriminate when authority sanctions it. This directly supports my argument that racism is learned, situational, and reinforced by systems, not hardwired. The Rich Get Richer and the Poor Get Prison by Jeffrey H. Ryman. This book explains how the criminal justice system reflects class inequality rather than neutral justice. Street crime is punished harshly. Elite crime is minimized or ignored. This directly feeds into dark racism's focus on economic control over linguistic offense. The Lucifer Effect by Philip Zimbardo. Zimbardo expands on the Stanford prison experiment to show how ordinary people commit harm when placed inside systems that reward dominance, obedience, and dehumanization. The core insight is that situational forces often overpower individual morality. This book matters because it explains how racism can persist without overt hatred. People absorb roles, follow incentives, and normalize cruelty while telling themselves they're just doing their job. Dark racism relies heavily on this idea. Racist outcomes don't require racist intent when the system itself trains behavior. Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. Gladwell explores implicit bias in fast thinking, including how people who continuously reject racism still make biased decisions under pressure. This matters for understanding policing, fear, and split-second judgments, key themes in this book. Other media I mention know they exist. I don't recommend these as moral guides, but they matter historically or contextually. The Birth Dearth by Ben J. Wattenberg. This work is relevant to discussions about demographic pain, capitalism's need for population growth, and how reproductive policy becomes racialized. It's mentioned to explain motives, not endorse conclusions. Race Traits and Tendencies of the American Negro by Frederick Ludwig Hoffman, a textbook example of scientific racism. This book was used to argue against healthcare and social insurance by claiming black people were biologically inferior. It's mentioned as evidence of how racism shaped policy, not as legitimate science. American History X. This film is referenced as a cultural example of de radicalization and the limits of punishment. It's not sociology, but it illustrates how hate forms and sometimes breaks at an individual level. Now, let me tell you what this book is. This is a book about racism that doesn't stop at slurs. I'm going to say something up front that people like to pretend is controversial. The real engine of racism in America is institutional and economic. The language matters, the insults matter, the stereotypes matter, but those are often support beams, not the foundation. They help justify what's.
So you know, I'm not saying I'm an angel. I've had I've had issues because of my mental illness. I Kanye'd it at points. Um, yeah, I get a lot of. It seems like I look at my followers who like follow me, and a lot of them are black women. So I really want to be. I want to be a good example for their sons to look up to. I don't know why else they would be following me. I'm not that attractive. um, but I I just want to say I hate to see black men trapping. I hate to see them having to do the things that they do. I hate to see them um, poor. I hate to see them disenfranchised. I hate to see them in prison. I hate to see them having to be aggressive or think that's um, something beneficial. I want to be a new outlet. I want to carve out a lane not just for me but for like black culture because as you will see in this I recognize that or as you will see in Who's the Goat, I recognize that hip hop is also black culture and if Eminem's a guest, I'm definitely a guest. So I do push the limits. I'm not afraid to use like the N word. I've said it before in Luigi Mangiani, the song. But there's rules to it. Like, I has to be in defense of black people, or I have to be talking to white people, like, or it has to be descriptive. Um, I'm not just gonna call a black person the N word. That's a big no no. Obviously, I shouldn't. You shouldn't have to be told that. Um, but I have to be able to use words not only as a rapper but as a sociologist. So that's where a little leeway comes from, and I'm not expecting black people to accept it. I'm just hoping they will forgive me. Um, but that's kind of what the dark racism is, and it goes along with it because real racism is institutionalized. It's systematic. It's systemic. It's it's structured through institutions. Like like I say, like I just said, racial slurs matter. All that stuff matters, but it doesn't matter as much as the systems in place that oppress black people. Like on the cover of Dark Racism, I'm exemplifying redlining, and if you don't know what that is, it's when black people weren't able to get loans in their neighborhoods because they were seen as redlined, where the neighborhoods wouldn't be approved governmentally to get loans from the banks, which means that's the main way, um, especially poor people build wealth in America. They've been disenfranchised from the GI Bill. They've been let out of New Deal policies, things like that. These are all institutional ways in which black people are suppressed. Um, and I hate to see it. Um, but that doesn't mean and like I'm a good faith actor. Like I want to see it get better. But that doesn't mean like I'm not gonna have some tendencies that some people would deem racist. Um, it's not racism. Racism is when you either don't know or don't care. Usually it's the former where they don't know, and if people know better, they do better, which is why I do books like this and my sociological blog, so people will know so they can do better. It's just about informing them. For the most part, some people are malicious. Like you got groups like Triple K that know better and still do it. They're malicious. Um, yeah, but for the most part, most people are racist because they're ignorant. I'm afraid of what that alarm means. This was supposed to go off tomorrow. Hey Google. Okay, so I even switched it twice. That alarm. Anyway, so dark racism is kind of like this thing where you're still being racist, but it's just you're on the border of you use slurs to defend black people and you're to be descriptive and to change the meaning of the word, but it matters less because real racism is institutionalized racism, and you should be trying to change policy. And that's what, like on the Global Warning album, I tell my audience to focus on changing policy. That's what really needs to happen. You know, if you call a black man an N word, it's or treat them like one. It's more devastating if they're poor. Um, you try to take away their housing, they have nowhere to live. But if you're wealthy and you have money, well, you can negate some of those aspects of institutionalized racism if you if you have if you're wealthy. So it's yeah. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh, so language is fluid, meaning like punk used to mean burnt corn or I don't know what I talk about what punk used to mean in the book. Oh, rotten wood. Um, so I actually think to change the meaning of the N word, because the problem is it has an in group and out group morality. In black in the group in black people, it's seen as positive to call each other the N word. Like, hey, what's up, my N word? Um, that's positive. But if a white man says it, it's negative. So it creates this in group, out group morality where white people are the out group, black people are the in group, and it creates this division. So, how do we fix that? Well, black people could stop saying the N word, which would be great, but I don't think that's going to happen. There's a lot of black people that say saying the N word gives them power, and I would have to disagree. But white people started this. It's their responsibility to fix it. So we could fix it by white people relentlessly calling each other the N word and refusing to call it to black people to mean friend. So that would be a way in which we could change the language so that way the N word would just mean friend and it would no longer be offensive. Um, because white people would create their own in group where they would say it to each other and not offend black people. This is a way. And then the other way would be is to name a government program after it that would give reparations. So it's actually the problem is we don't recognize the history and adjust for it economically. So like black the black community is one of the poorest communities. Black people as an ethnic group are like the poorest group or cohort in America. I'm just trying to fix it. I'm trying to give solutions. So this is one of the solutions. It would be white people to call each other the N word as to mean friend. Um, I talk about this in one of my original dark racism posts um, on ericleo108.blog now. Um, but yeah, there's some. So you're just not listening to the thing. There's a whole bunch. I go through the institutionalized racism. I talk about implicit bias. Why black people are seen as evil, or seen negatively because of implicit bias. Like basically, culture trains them. Every time you watch Fox News and they call a black person a drug dealer, it's this implicit. It trains you to see black people as criminals, and that there's this very real undertone. Like they can't call them the N word, so they call them criminals. It's circumloquacious. It's you talk around it. This is what dog whistles are. Um, yeah, you say it without saying it. It's kind of like yeah, I don't want to go there. Um, I don't want to give people ideas that are racist. um, anyways, yeah, that's a little tidbit. I didn't talk about like the stuff about that kind of stuff, about all this kind of stuff in there. I just talk about like the academic nature of it. What else did I talk about? Um, and I could go get the book right now, but let me play this one.
What's already happening materially. Who gets hired? Who gets denied? Who gets searched? Who gets loans? Who gets medical care? Who gets the benefit of the doubt? Who gets caged? What I'm calling dark racism is the marriage of two things most Americans like to keep separate: linguistics and economics. It's the idea that economic oppression tied to race is the real oppression, and that slurs and narratives often function like propaganda for that oppression. The words don't just hurt feelings, they train people to accept unequal outcomes as normal, deserved, even funny. I'm writing this because we're in a new millennium, and the old way of talking about racism isn't working. It either gets reduced to etiquette or it gets treated like a spooky ghost from the past. Meanwhile, the machine keeps running. Different buttons, same machine. So I'm going to construct it, not in an everybody hold hands and smile way, in a look at what this is and how it works way. If we can't see it clearly, we can't fight it. And if we can't fight it, we're basically volunteering to live inside it. This book is my attempt to explain racism through the eyes of sociology, psychology, and history. That's not me trying to sound academic. That's me being honest about what racism is. It's not only personal hate. It's not only laws. It's also group identity, fear, conditioning, propaganda, and incentives.
So I talk about how, like, because real racism is institutional. You can be like a G. Willikers nice person, but still be supporting racism, because that's not what racism is. Racism is not slurs anymore. It's it's not changing the system to fix what was created during slavery and segregation. Um, so yeah, I also talk about things like Frederick Douglass's double consciousness. I talk about Jim Crow, the original Jim Crows, the, the, the minstrel characters. Um, Coons. Like, let's see. I'm looking at the chapter 2 is how black culture was formed after the erasure and what survived. Uh, I talk about what makes black culture and how um, they were taken from the Africa and sorted and not like their history didn't come with them, so it's not like they can say they can draw back from Ethiopia or Botswana or Niger or why is this bothering me? I'm trying to think of African nations and I can't do it. Anyways, um, you can't you can't draw your roots back to a certain place. So black people, defined by their arbitrary skin color, created their own culture in America because of as a response to racism. That's why we have black culture. So I explained that dark racism is economic racism. Why power, not words. Like racism, like race doesn't exist. It's socially constructed, but it's very real in its effects. So race race doesn't exist, but racism exists. I talk about how there's no gene for race, how racism um, is as arbitrary as eye color, and it's because humans make arbitrary distinctions between each other, and we use that to be bigots, and that there's no biological difference, there's no real biological difference between black people and white people, for instance. Let's see.
And yes, I'm going to try to educate you. This will be cleansing, and some parts will be painful to read. I wrote it like that because I had to. The reality is often awful, brutal, and embarrassing for a country that markets itself like it's the main character in a morality story. I'm not here to lie to you about facts or curry favor. I'm not trying to piss you off, but I don't care if I do. I care if you understand. I'm warning you now. I'm probably going to say some stuff that irritates you. Not because I'm trying to be edgy, but because I'm trying to be honest. And the truth, especially about American racism, is frequently offensive. Part of the reason this subject hits so hard is that America is the global face of racism. When people around the world say racism, half of the time they're picturing us. That isn't random. Racism was baked into the country early. Law, policy, wealth, land, policing, labor. We've made progress, yes. But there are still parts of the machine that produce racist outcomes even when nobody is wearing a hood and screaming slurs. That's what institutionalized racism means. The system can do racism with a straight face. Before I explain why I'm the one telling this story, it's worth saying what this book is not, because a lot of people will try to decide what I believe before actually reading it.
Okay, we're gonna leave it there. Yeah. While white people, while black people have been fighting for equality, white people have been accumulating equity, and that's why black people are the poorest cohort in America. Um, and we haven't fixed economically the effects of slavery and segregation. Okay, that's it. Um, I'm gonna go work on more blogs. I hope you liked it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of my family. You're awesome. I love you very much. Until next time, you take care, alright? Bye. Let's see. See YouTube. basketball.